everybody. Welcome back to day 3 at BETT 2025. We are on the beautiful scan stand today again with our team Nightsky Studios with this beautiful LED behind us. We also have our World Builders team environments. We're going to kind of scroll through a couple of them just so that you can see some of the beautiful environments that our artists at the World Builders team have put together. My name is Jodi Nelson-Tabor. I'm the head of Final Pixel Academy. Final Pixel, the company itself, is a creative innovation and filmworks company. And we work across virtual production, specifically in ICVX or in-camera VFX LED production across film, television, advertising. And we have our World Builders team that builds these assets, these environments that we'll see in a moment. And then we have the Academy, where we skill up the early emerging talent that are coming out of universities, professional crew, for all of these converging technologies today. And my special guest with me today is Matt Robertson, who is the technical team leader of Immersive Media at the School of Art and Design at Nottingham Trent University. And you braved the storms to come down with us today here at the Excel Center. So today, keeping in the theme of our industry and education collaboration theme, Bridging the Gap is our title. This is beautiful. This is where I want to go on holiday. This is one of our World Builders team's worlds. And really want to talk about your journey from a few years ago, it's like a few years ago, early adopter, virtual production, kind of what you learned, and then we'll go into the journey that your tech team and the training and the new stage that you have at your university. But first, introduce yourself. Tell me a little bit about what you do and what makes things exciting for you besides Legos.
As you said, my name's Matt, technical team leader for Immersive Media and Technology at Nottingham School of Art and Design. In our role, we have 8 technical teams at the School of Art and Design that cover a variety of specialisms, so immersive media and technology. We've got lens-based teams that cover film production, photography, sound production, all the way through print, garment, materials. So the idea really is the technical teams, we kind of exist to supplement those skill sets that maybe don't exist on the academic teams. And also provide one-to-one support for students, so that can involve a range of things around introducing new technologies, new workflows. So essentially, the academics are the ideation side of things, the why, and the technical teams, we're here to kind of provide the how and help them kind of create whatever it is they're creating, which is really exciting. So we get to work with a variety of courses. And our new Design and Digital Arts building, which was opened in November, so that's based around our games, visual effects, film, animation, graphic design, and motion graphics and illustration courses. So in there we've got a variety of brand new specialist studios. Obviously the most exciting one is our virtual production studio, which is fantastic. But we also have motion capture studios, green screen studios, Foley studios, and those all interlink as well. So we've now managed to open up a whole range of opportunities across courses to learn about these new technologies, but also bring virtual production from kind of film and TV into photographic workflows and fashion workflows and fine art and things like that as well. So it's a really exciting time.
It's amazing, and it's a really good demonstration of showing a multidisciplinary approach. And I wonder, before we get too deep sort of in the technology, what was it that attracted you about virtual production when it first kind of came on the scene? Because you've had quite a journey from your start as well. So tell me a little bit about that.
Luckily for me, I'm a bit of a sci-fi geek anyway, so obviously The Mandalorian came out, and quite often we like to look behind the scenes and see how these things work. And that's where I kind of discovered about virtual production and what that was. And I think we were sent an email, and it was late 2020 maybe, around the new building, asking what we'd like to see in there. So I probably rather bravely wrote down LED volume, thinking they'll never go for it, it's too expensive. But sure enough, a few months later, got an email back saying, yep, can you figure out what this stuff is and how it might work in the new building? So that was really exciting. And that kind of led me to Story Futures and a boot camp they were running with yourselves, Final Pixel. So that involved a shoot day down at ARRI. So I got to go down there, experience what virtual production was. I got to meet the team like Michael and Chris, the wonderful team at ARRI as well. Met David Levy down there, who proved to actually be a key contact in our journey around that. So that was great, and from there, the kind of journey continued from there. And a big part of the, I suppose the ethos, if you like, was to try and speak with as many industry partners as possible and try and bring industry on board with us, because we knew it wasn't just about having a really nice fancy virtual production studio. It was also about trying to align those workflows. So we know when students are leaving our virtual production studio, when they go into industry, we've trained them properly. So that was really key to kind of building that studio. And that led us to the team at ARRI, Final Pixel, Creative Technologies, who eventually ended up building the studio alongside ARRI and Lux Machina. But we spoke with Sony, we spoke with Disguise, we went to Explore Studio, Garden Studios. I just really tried to get out there and see as much as possible and experience as much as possible so we could make that informed decision.
And I think that's a really important key component, because quite often when we're speaking to education teams, tech teams who are being spoken to by a lot of industry providers, it's a bit of overwhelm and decision paralysis. And it takes, as you said, it took somebody at the university who makes the decisions on what gets capital expenditure and not, to help kind of see that vision of what's happening in the industry and how to work together with the internal teams to empower you to go out and find the answers that you need to help solve those solutions. And that's a really great example of that collaborative space. And also by collaborating with industry, it opens up doors to possibilities for future work besides just procuring the kit. So tell me a little bit about what was that procurement process like? How long did it take from when you went out and started learning about all this to all the conversations you had to now you've got a fully fledged and operational wall?
So I think in total it was around 3 years, I think. And obviously this ran alongside the development of the new building. About 3 years in total, and we did a variety of things, going out and visiting other studios, speaking with industry partners. We also went to places like IBC in Amsterdam, coming down to London to trade shows, to virtual production boot camps. We went to Target 3D as well, a variety of different places, to partly figure out what would work in our space and what wouldn't work in our space. But also using, I think quite lucky, Nottingham Trent, we have a wide variety of skills and experience on our technical team. So we were able to, I think, having that knowledge is kind of key, because I think there's probably two routes. You can either go down the more bespoke route, so partly being involved in that design process yourself, working with industry, or there's trying to find the right companies who can do more kind of, out of the box isn't the right word, but they can provide a solution for you. We decided to go down the bespoke route, partly because the nature of our building had some quirks around it and things that wouldn't work, but also because we wanted to embed our kind of technical knowledge and our technical practices within VP. So we feel confident ourselves operating that studio. So it was quite a long process, but once we'd spoken to industry partners, David Levy at ARRI and the team, they came along and they did some consultancy for us. So they kind of helped lead us in the right direction. And then we went out to what's called a tender process. So that's where various companies put in a bid for the specifications we laid out. And then that was a very long process, back and forth, where eventually Creative Technology, ARRI and Lux Machina won the bid, and they came in and built our wonderful studio. And that was nice, being able to have that relationship with Creative Technology and to start building something more bespoke. but also something that very much aligned with industry. So we have ARRI sky hoist systems in there, so we've got industry standard kind of rigging systems. We've got the LED volume, we've got the wild walls, we've got the brain bar, we've got Lux Machina's renders powering that. So yeah, I feel really fortunate as well that the dean and the exec team at Nottingham Trent put that faith and trust in their technical teams to use their expertise to make the best decisions. So yeah, really fortunate there as well. So yeah, it was great.
Yes, that consultation is such an important part of the process, even though it took many years, and obviously the industry is moving on and shifting like every 6 months. It sounds like you took a very bespoke approach to it that fits not only with the space that you've got, which is important, but also think about the ethos of the programs that you run, the aims of the program, and what you want your graduates to be able to do in the industry, and all of that's really keen. So when we talk about investment, yes, money is part of it, and a big part of it, because kit procurement is obviously very expensive. However, the other side of it is the investment in the staff, right? So your technical team, your academics who also have to teach and train the students and having a wider understanding of it, particularly if they've not been a practitioner or have for a long time. You know, an industry shifts a lot. How do you guys tackle that sort of never-ending, non-standardized curriculum that is constantly moving, so that you're constantly in a state of innovation, right? How do you manage that?
So I think there's having that communication firstly between academic teams and technical teams, because as you said, it is constantly shifting. So there's a lot to keep up with, and trying to stay ahead of the curve can be quite tricky, especially when the pace of change is so quick. And I suppose also is trying to balance out those decisions you make, because you might invest in something that 2 years down the line has been replaced by something completely different. So I think having that communication is key. And I think in terms of building modules as well that have some kind of flexibility built into them. So obviously some of our modules have already been written before the new building opened. But we're able to build in some flexibility to those, where we can then bring virtual production, for example, in as part of that module. So when we're talking about camera workflows and directing cinematography, when we're talking about production, we can bring that in. And then I suppose from now, as we evolve over the next few years, is slightly shifting and changing those modules. And also bringing in, building in collaboration is a key part, I think. So we have collaborative modules that allow courses to sync up. So we have our visual effects courses working with our film courses and our production design courses. So in the VP studio, that's fantastic. We have VisFX students and academics on the brain bar, learning about Unreal, tech artistry, tech stage management. Then we have our film students and film tutors on camera workflows, camera tracking, lighting, and then production design students on physical set build and blending physical and digital sets. So it's a really nice, that's what I love about virtual production, is that collaborative atmosphere it brings. And I think for students that's really important as well when they get out to industry. They're in that process straight away. Whereas I think sometimes there's a danger in education if you just focus on the individual course, then sometimes you can lose that. So it can probably feel a bit overwhelming for students to step into industry and suddenly you've got to collaborate with all these people and communicate with all these people. So I think that's really important as well. And also opening that up to a wide range of courses as well. So we have photography students coming and doing shoots in a few weeks in the studio. We've got fashion management and branding courses are coming in to use digital shot fronts they've created on the volume and do pieces to camera and stuff like that. We've got fashion textiles doing really kind of weird, wonderful conceptual pieces where we've put high-end scans of textiles up on the volume and kind of see what we can create there. So also just outside of that, I suppose the more kind of typical courses you'd imagine in those kind of spaces like film, visual effects, TV production is bringing, making sure that everyone can access that space. And also that's part of the ethos built around the new building is that idea of collaboration. So within our immersive technology and digital technology hubs, which are kind of technology safe spaces for students to come and speak with people like myself and my team and the wider technical team to learn about these new technologies and workflows as well. And I think that's great. It's lovely to see so many different students from different disciplines coming in and learning about this technology, which hopefully will, help industry in the future as well when they go out and graduate.
Definitely. And I think what you're describing is sort of a de-siloed approach to the process, which virtual production, of course, has changed the whole industry, because the workflows have shifted. What is traditionally a waterfall is now a more agile approach. And this sort of back and forth, which requires more people to have agency in creative decision making, which is fantastic, but they need to be armed with the skills to be able to do that. And not just the technical skills, but we're also talking about the soft skills. And so throwing everybody kind of in the sandbox from different disciplines who've been taught a certain way, I'm sure has probably caused some chaos and some challenges and some friction. But we're all kind of learning this in parallel. The staff are learning, the students are learning, the industry is learning. So all these things you say are like fantastic and super optimistic. What are some of the challenges that you guys have faced thus far in adopting and integrating this into your program?
Obviously there's the knowledge and the skill set is quite an obvious one. I think especially for education who, if they're lucky enough to be able to bring these technologies into their institutions, then upskilling is a massive part of that. But obviously that does involve time. Again, it involves money, which I think is key again to working with those industry partners. So obviously we've had communication with yourself about training programs. Creative Technology and ARI are providing their own kind of training. And I think technically as well, especially with a virtual production studio, it's not going to open on day one and everything's going to be perfect. There's going to be little snags and little technical hitches here and there. And also, even though we've got a really skilled team who have used Unreal Engine for many years, there is that difference of kind of learning that workflow for VP. So, what's necessarily is game ready might not be VP ready. So there's learning that as well. So I think what we're trying to do, finding that time for the collaboration as well, because obviously courses have that curriculum. They need to teach students a wide variety of skills. So there's also finding the time for those collaborations and making space for that. So what we're trying to do is keep those conversations open. And I think, the upskilling, the technical side of it, but because as technicians, we're used to things not working and we're used to fixing those, taking time, get them fixed, get them working, and sometimes we have to do that at pace, is what we've said is any time we hit issues like that is to turn that into learning experience for the students. So we don't mind if they come into the studio, if something's not quite working, then we can explain to them why it's not working, what we think the fix is, and we can go through that with them. So hopefully some of those snags and some of those drawbacks, actually, we can turn them into a positive and actually turn that into a learning experience for the students. Because no doubt when they go into industry, they'll run into those same kind of things. But and especially, working in industry, sometimes you just need solutions quickly. You need to find them fast. So I think there's that. And then there is obviously the financial issue as well. So depending is trying to fit whatever you can into the budget. So there were some things we had to remove from our studio because it wasn't in budget. Some things in the building we had to remove that weren't in budget. But again, it's just having those conversations and I guess kind of prioritizing the most important things for you and your students moving forward. And then hopefully those things you have had to remove, you can maybe add those on further down the line. But yeah, so there's, there are a few disadvantages, but mainly advantages.
That's the most important thing. So in the consultation with your students who are now getting hands-on this professional technology, I was speaking to somebody the other day and they were saying, used to when you went to uni, you got uni equipment. and now you've got industry, high-level cameras, obviously walls, VP walls, things like that. In consultation with your students, what are they the most excited about learning or doing? Have they talked about different projects or different kind of ideas? Like, what's some of the things that they're most excited about?
Yeah, I think everyone's really excited, obviously, about getting their hands on some of the high-end cameras, so the ARRI cameras that we've got in. And I think some of the ideas, we took some film students in the other day. We had one student who instantly went to zombies in Times Square. We had someone else who wanted to recreate the fireside scene from the latest Nosferatu film. I was like, could we do that in Unreal Engine? We've got a third-year student now who's is a really good example, actually. He's working with visual effects students who are building him a kind of snow planet environment. He's working with production design students who are building him a physical set. And he's working with, he's even got graphic design students on board for marketing and things like that. So that's a really good example. So I'm really looking forward to him coming in. And I think just when they walk into the space, there's always silence for about a minute or two as they look around, and it's really nice to see on open days when prospective students are coming and they look at the space and they're like, oh, wow. And there's that funny mix of excitement but also trepidation, because people are a little bit nervous about we don't want to break the really expensive camera, or but again, that's part of that role of academics and technical teams, is to create that safe space around the technology, and also just let students know it's kind of you're not going to know everything now, but that's our job, is here to help you learn all this stuff. We've got some photography students coming back. They did a pre-shoot the other day. One of my technicians had built a really lovely environment that almost looked a bit like the Scottish Highlands, and a photography student dropped in, and he did a quick shoot with a fashion design piece that he saw one of the fashion design students with. So he borrowed that, grabbed a graphic design student so she could model this piece, and then he was in the studio and he was photographing it on the day. So it's great. There's a real buzz of excitement around it, and obviously our games and VisFX students are they've got all kinds of weird and wonderful environments that they want to get built and get up on the volume. So yeah, it's going to be really exciting.
I love that. You're creating an environment for them to come and play and to grab maybe other talent from other disciplines that they normally wouldn't think of because they're somewhere else on campus. And quite often, this technology, there's still a huge barrier to entry. It's very expensive to get on commercial stages, even for training, partners and so forth. So I think education has a really important role to play here. And investing in this tech is a really important way, not only for the students that are coming to train, but also think about when they become alumni, and thinking about that wider community that you're trying to build, because you've got artists, you've got other small businesses, you've got plenty of stakeholders in the industry that also would benefit from that technology as well. What are your thoughts about that sort of further afield alumni retention, kind of opportunity for students to be able to feel like they always have a place to come back and create and explore new ideas? Because as you know, when you go into industry, there's no time for failure, right? It's shoot and do. So what are your thoughts on that?
So we have an alumni department that works with our alumni students to make sure we're kind of staying in contact, finding out the kind of things that they're up to. We quite often get our alumni to come back and do talks and presentations, have conversation with their students about what they've been up to, the kind of work they've been involved, give them some of those insights of working in industry. And also, I think just as academics and technicians is building that relationship with our alumni and keeping in touch. A good example is one of our ex-production design students, Marcus, who we take our production design students down to Pinewood every year to hold an exhibition. So Marcus was actually down there. He'd just finished filming on the most recent Star Wars show, The Acolyte. So we sat down, we had a catch-up and a coffee with him and a conversation. So he was really excited about the idea of a virtual production studio coming to Nottingham Trent. And he, I think especially the kind of work he's doing now is he's keen to come back and speak to the students, like you say, to give some of that real world experience, especially when you're working on shows like The Acolyte and things like that, and it's kind of, stuff needs to get done. So I think there's partly, for our current students, is creating that environment that they feel safe to explore and safe to fail in. Because, I think failure is a really important part of that process, is kind of like how we learn. And then hopefully by the time they graduate and they get into industry, they've kind of overcome a lot of those things. And then, bringing alumni back to talk, keeping in touch. We hold a variety of events, guest talks and things like that. So it's really important I think for any educational institution, is to keep that relationship going. Because that's also how you get that real world feedback as well. Because we as universities and schools, etc., we need to make sure we're doing the right thing. So how do we know we're doing the right thing? Keep in touch with the people that we've already sent out into industry. And we can kind of gauge it that way as well, which I think is really important. And also just keeping that relationship with industry and making sure we're kind of engaged with them in a conversation in terms of, what skills are needed, where are the skills gap, what are some of the most important things you expect of graduates and all that kind of stuff. Amazing.
We are in rush hour now, in the middle of the road. I notice I'm trying not to get distracted by the mini cars and buses that are running across your head. So a technical question for you. Our nice little doggy, Phil, robot, is taking a nap. In AI, that's being utilized now, students are using it, obviously, and faculty's using it, I'm sure. Are you starting to think about AI in the workflows for the studio space technologically to do what? I'm interested in how you might think about adapting that or using it for your purposes.
So it's always a funny question when you raise AI with the students in a class, and some people are dead against it, some people are really for it. But I think what we've said to students is, we, regardless of how they feel about it, we need to engage with AI because it's not going away, and it is changing workflows, it's adapting workflows, so it's ensuring that our students stay informed about that so they can then make those informed decisions creatively about where they might use AI, whether they want to use AI. In terms of the studio, we did a shoot in January that needed a very quick turnaround, so we actually used Midjourney to create some 4K plates of this. It was a living room scene. The living room was on fire, and we had this firefighter coming in to do a piece to camera. One of my colleagues, Adam, actually used Midjourney to create a 4K plate, which we then used in Pixar, got that up in the volume, got the haze machines out, and got the lighting setups and things. And that actually worked really well. So there's things like that we started to think, well, actually, we're because some students who might want to access the studio, they may not have the skills or the time potentially to speak to other students to get them to build environments. So actually using something like Midjourney to generate imagery can actually be a really good workaround. But also, I think making sure our academic, technical, but our research teams, everyone's engaging with AI and having those conversations, and just making sure that we're kind of implementing it in the right way, if that makes sense. Because there's various ethical kind of questions around it and things as well. But it's definitely, we're kind of at the start of that journey, I think. I think some of the AI workflows out there, I think, do afford creatives to be more creative in some sense. Certainly as an ex-photographer myself, less time I can spend rotoscoping things and those kind of workflows to actually be more creative, I think really helps. There's a few different things out there we're experimenting with, and also motion capture workflows. So looking at kind of various AI platforms for that, and runway and things like that we're experimenting. So our technical teams are looking into that now, because again, that's something I think that will have a massive kind of impact in terms of the film industry, especially independent filmmakers. who can access those kind of tools to create productions. So it's really interesting. So we're looking into those now as well and how we can bring those in, but making sure we're doing it in a way that makes sense for education, and we're ticking all the kind of ethical boxes as well.
Yeah, because I mean, AI is obviously a tool, but it's the same with copyrights and when students use other works for educational purposes, but then if it gets published or monetized, it's in a different field. But AI is a whole different sort of, level of use, and ethics, bias, all of those things, that we need to look at. So I think it's really important, but it also opens doors for, again, innovation and opportunity. We were speaking the other day about genres of film or genres of music, and how a lot of that is just like being blended at the seams, because you now have a tool that can take different genres, blend them into something else, and now all of a sudden it becomes a new thing. So it's quite exciting to be able to get outside of those siloed approaches to creating art, because at the end of the day, it is just tools and creating art, right? So I'm really excited about all of the stuff you guys are going. You've come so far. You talk about the 3 years it took to build the stage, but you're really at this beginning journey, and I'm really excited to see where it's going to go. So with your crystal ball, what do you hope you guys will be able to manifest out of all of this technology and the students, and create this collaborative community that you are focused on building?
Yeah, we're at the start of that journey in some ways. In others, we're quite far ahead. But I think I'm looking forward to seeing partly how those kind of collaborations bear fruit. Firstly, so just having an environment that feels more collaborative across a wide range of courses and disciplines, I think, is really exciting. Myself and my technical team, even though we're based around immersive media and technology, three of us actually, our backgrounds is photography. So three of us were ex-photographers, and we're now working with Unreal Engine and high-end cameras and LED volumes. So I think there's that collaboration is going to be really exciting. I think also that development in technology, like you say, the pace of change is fast, but even though it can feel quite overwhelming to stay on top of that, I think there's a lot of exciting stuff coming out of that as well. You were talking about AI. I remember even just 6 months ago, I'd see a variety of AI film examples on LinkedIn, and there's a chef cutting a piece of steak, and there's a cat playing with noodles and various other things. Now to people are posting 2-minute short films where they've got car chase scenes and all kinds of stuff, and it's just the pace at which that's evolving is crazy. But also, I think the more those technologies are blending as well. So recently we've done a lot of work with students where we've had photographers and fine artists and fashion students and film students all in the same space in our technology hubs, working together to create outputs, and we've blended Gaussian splats, which we've then projection mapped on walls, which we've then filmed, and then we've taken that and we've taken that into Unreal Engine, and we're trying to optimize that to get it up in the volume to see how that might work. So suddenly there's this lovely kind of connection between all these different workflows and technologies. So it doesn't feel, I think like you said, siloed is, I think that's a great term. It doesn't feel siloed anymore. It feels like we're blending into the same space, which, despite its challenges, I think is massively exciting. So yeah, further down the line, I think there'll be more of that. And yeah, hopefully by that point we'll have created a lot of wonderful stuff in our VP studio as well. And hopefully we're still having those conversations with Final Pixel, with Creative Technology, Ari and others. And we're still on board and kind of working together to make sure our next generation of storytellers are equipped in the best way they can be.
That is the direction of travel. Thank you, Matt. Really appreciate it. Thank you so much. Thank you.